I think one of the things that's most interesting about Justin Trudeau's current troubles are the people who are now turning their backs on him. You know, it's one thing to say that conservatives are angry at Justin Trudeau and the Liberals propose a certain idea, policy measure, a certain level of deficit, and then conservative-minded people are upset with him, and online and commentators and so forth, they're the ones pointing out the weaknesses. That is to be expected. And these are people who, since day one, have said, yeah, I think we might have a problem with Justin Trudeau and his policies. I mean, looking back now, when I read columns that I wrote back in 2015, I can't help but feel a little bit of an I told you so, because all of the concerns that I certainly had have almost come to fruition. No, I don't think that's the interesting thing that's happening right now. Right now, it's that the groups that were previously core to Justin Trudeau's brand are the ones that are now beginning to turn their backs on him. Quite literally. You had that Daughters of the Vote event that is a cross-partisan, non-partisan organization, but there are a lot of left-leaning individuals among it, and these were young women up on Parliament Hill in the House of Commons in front of Justin Trudeau, and about 50 of them stand up and turn their backs to him. Now, to be honest, I didn't actually care for it because while I appreciate that there are a lot of concerns about Justin Trudeau, I respect the office of the Prime Minister, and I thought this was probably the first time these people who had been invited to enter the House of Commons had been in the presence of the Prime Minister, and they turned their backs on him and that symbol. I didn't care from it from that perspective, but the basic idea that these young women, a demographic core to Justin Trudeau's brand, something that he has sold himself as the champion of for the past few years now, that they are turning their backs on him. That really tells you something. Likewise with First Nations. One chief said to me the other day, reconciliation is dead. They clearly feel massively betrayed by Justin Trudeau.
Well, it was deeply disappointing to know and understand that this late date in the game that the vision and the promises of Justin Trudeau that were announced in October of 2015 have not come to pass. All of the promises and the commitments that he made have simply been set aside. And now that he's under tremendous pressure from the Jody Wilson-Raybould SNC-Lavalin issue, Mr. Trudeau is really revealing himself to be who he really is, which is a very self-centered, conceited, arrogant individual, and I think that was demonstrated with his very smug, mean-spirited response to the Grassy Narrows demonstrate.
He promised them the moon. He really did. He said back in 2015, a campaign promise, he'd implement all of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report recommendations. Now, I actually read that report and the recommendations at the time, and I think the report is an interesting thing to read, to learn some details about the history of the residential school system. But these 94 odd recommendations, I mean, I read through them, they cover a whole lot of ground. They are a massive overreach, and they cover federal, provincial, municipal issues, and issues just not part of public policy, issues more in the private sector, and issues in people's personal lives. So for the Prime Minister to even say he'd implement them all, I mean, that is a wild promise to make. He really promised them that he would give them the moon.
Justin Trudeau reiterated his promise to implement all 94 calls to action.
To design a national engagement strategy for developing and implementing a national reconciliation framework, including a formal response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action.
And of course, he's failed not just to deliver on that, but failed to deliver on the murdered and missing Indigenous women inquiry, the Boilwater advisories, and so forth. So they are feeling doubly betrayed, I think, than they would if there had been another leader who had just said, well, we care about First Nations issues, but didn't make the same amount of promises. And that is what is so interesting right now. And I guess the question is, what will he do? Is it that he's just a bit down with these groups and he can turn it all around? Or has he been exposed as a fraud, a phony, an imposter? One thing's for certain, it's not going to be easy to bring these people back into the Justin Trudeau fold.